Okay, on this video we'll be talking about True 3D Part 2. I'm going to talk more about how to add 3D objects into the game. I've added trees. I added like a pool, like a lake, or it's just like a little small pool pretty much. Better rain, animated rain, sky. Now with the spear, I wasn't able to do the sky using the spear, but I was able to use the spear for a table that I created. And like I told you before in my previous video, the spear is kind of complex. If you make the spear too big, then you go right through it. And even if you try to make it a solid object, you go through the spear. So in order to fix that, you have to make it narrow so you don't go through the spear. Or you could actually add a solid object inside the spear and make it transparent so you don't go inside the spear. But I'll talk about that in a minute with the spear. But let me show you what I did here and then I'll explain. So in front of you, you see a table that I created. The top portion of it is the spear. It has a wooden top to it. It's solid. Then you have the cylinder there below the spear, and then you have a triangle object that's meshed up on the column. So like I said, in Game Maker you could use the basic shapes that are 3D and make different shapes with them, like I did with this table right here. So there's three objects that's meshed together. That's the spear on top, and I pretty much flatten it down. And then I, add it to the column, which is below the spear. Then I have the cone at the bottom as the base. And I can try to demonstrate here, if I parent those three objects together and try to animate it, like make it move, it should be attached and move on its own altogether. I'll have to try it and see. Then behind the table there, you see some cones at the bottom. They are going to be spikes. So my first video on 3D, True 3D, you saw that those cones behind the table were large. They were as tall as me. What I did was I pretty much lowered the cone down below the floor, so only the tops are showing. So that's what you see there, and I'll show you how I did that. I'll try to go into more detail with the code and demonstrate what each type of numbers represent, do different things with the 3D shapes. And when I go across these spikes, I get hit. So get hit there and I pretty much die. So let me go back into it, and I'm going to show you one more thing. A couple other things that I've created. Fix this. Alright. And like I said, you can hit this 3D object and I talked about that in my other video, and then you can move this. See how that moved over. Now I'm going to show you something that I didn't show you last time. Alright, so you pick up the card key. Originally I had a portal right here which was narrow, and I used the spear for it, which made me jump to the next room, but I had issues with it. So you could make a portal out of the spear and make it narrow, and you could switch the colors, but I didn't do that because it was messing up for some reason, because I was going through the narrow portal and he wasn't going to the next room, so I just completely took it out. Alright, see, now you can see that I made the rain better coming down, it animates better, got a better image online. And see, now you see that pool in front of you there, I got an image of the animated pool. You see it moving because it's raining out. And then in front of you have the 3D trees. So the trunks of the trees are 3D. Okay, but the tree at the top, see the green, all that's flat. So basically what I did was I took one of these plants here in front of you and I rotated it upside down, and I cut off the stem of it and I made it like leaves coming down. And so I changed the numbers so the numbers make the greenery go up in the sky. So in the code, I changed the numbers so they go up in the sky area. So I'll talk about that. And see, now the sky, I don't have any flat objects on there making the sky. That right there is GameMaker using a set color background, and I set the color background as gray, and I'll talk about that. And you can change it to like red or orange or whatever using GameMaker's color scheme background. I originally had a planet up there in the sky, but it didn't work. I used a spear. It worked fine if you play the game at the beginning. It showed up, but then when I got the key and went to the second room, it wasn't there anymore. So you could make a potential planet up there. Like I said, it had a glitch in it, so I just took it out. And you know, it's the same setup as just changing the code to raise it up into the sky and adding an image on the spear to make it a planet. But I didn't put it in this game because it didn't work. It worked if you first play the game, but if you go to the next room, it wasn't there. So I don't know why. It's a glitch in GameMaker. I don't know what was causing the problem. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the pool there. I'm going to talk about this animated rain. I'm going to talk about that tree right there. And I'm going to talk about the table and the spikes. And the sky, of course. Alright, so first thing is the spikes. Nothing new I talked about before. You have to make a square image, made it X and Y 7 origin. Create, move fixed. I made it direction middle, speed 0, so it's not going to move. And the draw event, this is where things change. So, alright, so let me first talk about, okay, I believe this number makes it go up and down on the land. So let me change this number real quick and let me just demonstrate a couple things. Okay, see how, okay, that number raised the cone up. So this number right here raises the cone. So you have a larger number, it raises the cone up. You have a lower number, it makes the cone go down in the floor. So remember that. And then if you change these numbers, see if you change this number right here, let me do this first. Change this number to 50, let me see what happens. I think it widens it up or something, or makes it smaller, narrow or something. Okay, so that makes it go down. Well, no, I'm sorry, because I changed this number too. So let me put this back at 15. So just think about this number here. Don't worry about this. This is going to make it rise back to the top on the floor. But this is a number I want you to pay attention to. I want to see what this happens. I think this makes it narrow. Okay, yeah, I believe that makes it narrow. So let me do it one more time to make sure. So I'm going to change this to like 100, or maybe let's do 80. I don't know. I think it makes it narrow. Or it might change the pattern. It might change the pattern of the image on the cone. Let me make it 5. So you just have to play around these numbers here. I'm just trying to give you more of a detailed understanding of what's going on with these shapes here when you mess with the numbers here. Okay, that's what's happening. So see how, change that last number, see how it makes it an octagon shape. So that's what's happening here. So when you change the numbers to a low amount, it makes it an octagon. If you change it to a higher number, it makes it more like a smooth cylinder circle. So remember that number. So you want to change that if you want to change the shape of it, whether it be an octagon or a circle. Higher number makes it a circle, a lower number makes it more of an octagon. This number right here lowers it. If you have a lower number, it lowers it down to the floor. Higher number makes it go to the top. Now these numbers right here will, I believe, will these blue numbers here, not the black, but the blue numbers. If you change these numbers here, I believe it stretches it. It stretches it either on the x-axis or it stretches it on the y-axis. So if you, I'm just going to change one number, see what happens. See, now it widens it up. It widens the cone. So see, like, you can make different shapes with it, but it's kind of cumbersome. It's not, you really have to like go back and forth in the game to see what happens. So like I said, it's probably best to make a new project file for GameMaker and mess with the cone on how you want the shape to be. And then once you have it set up, because it's going to render faster if you do it with a new project. So once you have exactly what you want, then you can incorporate that in your main game. So you don't, because if you do it in your main game, it's going to take time to load it up and see what's going to happen. So if you make a new project file and then just do the cone only and change the shapes, then it renders faster and you can see what you want to do quicker, so it saves time. So now I'm going to change this number here and see what happens. But like I said, this is this way is not the best way of doing it. You know, like, you can use a modeler program to make your shapes and then import into GameMaker, and I've gave you some links on that. Okay, so with changing that shape, see how it rotated. So by changing that other number, it rotated the spikes a different direction and widened it. So that's what that did. So I'm going to change that back to 2. So yeah, so you change this number to 10, it stretches it out on the, I believe, on the x-axis. If you change this number to 10, it widens it and then it rotates it on the y-axis. Then if you change this number I don't know what that did. It looks like it just stretched it out. Let me change this. Let me change this to just 10. Because it's negative. It may raise it up. I think that's what that does. It makes it go up. See, it reduced the size down. That's what it did. I feel like it did two things. It kind of sized it. These numbers seem like they did the most change. Yeah, I'm not sure what those two numbers do. I think it may stretch it. It may stretch it from top to bottom. Let me make it a bigger number. See what the difference is here, because I still can't understand what those two numbers do. Okay, see, it really stretches it out. So you can make different shapes with it. And see, it's kind of weird because that spike went through that table, but that table was really solid. But see, you can mesh things together, but it's considered solid for the character, but it's not considered solid when you mess with the shapes and mesh them together. They're treated like they're not solid, but they really are. Yeah, so you just got to play with the numbers. I'm just trying to give you more of a detailed understanding of the numbers and how it works when you change different things on the shape by the numbers. See, now it's going the other direction. So you could make mountains with this if you wanted to. So Game Maker provides basic shapes for you, so you can make different other, more complex, more different complex 3D shapes. Or you can use a 3D program, which would be more ideal to do because you can see the change happen right away, and you can make your shapes really quick, and then you import it into Game Maker. I'm going to try to do a video on that, on how to import 3D objects in Game Maker. Next, I'll do part 3. I'll see if I can do that. But no promises. We'll see what happens. Alright, so let me talk about the table here. So the table, there's three portions to the table. You have the body, which is the cylinder. You have the top, which is the cylinder top of the table, and then you have the bottom, which is the triangle, the cone. So I'm just going to parent all this together. I want to see if I can move the whole thing. I wonder if the whole thing will move when I parent it together. No, it does not. Well, if I put an animation in for all objects, it may move. So I'm just doing this if you wanted something 3D to move in Game Maker. But like I said, this is not the real ideal way of doing it. You would pretty much make all the shapes within another program and then import it into Game Maker. Okay, see, now all that moves. So you wouldn't have... I didn't parent it, I just did persistent, which that's not going to do anything. Yeah, you may have to make sure that all of it's set up to basic wall basics, which means that it basically makes the object solid so you don't go through it. Yeah, don't make it persistent. I don't know what I was thinking about there. But just make sure that each piece, the top, the cylinder, and the cone, has the same animation of 2 speed. And it should all move at the same time. But see, that wouldn't be the ideal way of doing it. The best way of doing it is you would have a 3D modeler program, and you would make the whole table within that program, the top, the cylinder, and the bottom. And then when you import it into GameMaker, it would be one solid object. So that would be the better way of doing it. So let me just go into a little bit detail here. So with the table, I just did a draw instance, make sure it's parented to basic wall basics, so it's going to be solid. And this is the code that I used. So like I said, I'm not going to go into all this detail here. One thing I didn't talk about with the cone is if you change these numbers here. So let me just go back to the cone real quick, spikes. So if you change these numbers here, then the pattern of the image changes. So if you change all these numbers here, the image on the object is going to look different. Let me show you. See how the bricks are smaller now? They're more fine-tuned. So if you change these 3 numbers here from 1 to 10, so 1 will make the image look larger. Then if you make these numbers, bigger, you have a 15 instead of a 1, then it's going to make the image smaller. The image of the on the object. See, by changing that one number, see, it goes a different direction with the image. So it's all, you're changing you're manipulating the image too by changing the numbers. So you can make different patterns with it. Okay, so I talked about all the numbers here. So that goes for anything that's 3D. You can change the numbers to anything here. And you can change the pattern right here. You can change the pattern of the table. You change this 50 to a smaller number, it's going to do something else. It's going to, I can't remember what it did. I think it widened it or something. I can't, like if I change it to 10. Yeah, that's what I talked about. It turns into an octagon. That's what happens. So I'm going to delete this moving table. So you could make it move by making sure that all images, the top, the cylinder, and the cone, have the same animation in there. So they all move at one time. So it treats it as one solid object. So like I said, this right here, change this to a smaller number, it makes it more of an octagon shape. Higher number makes it more of a circular shape. And I just added the pattern on there, background 40. So the pattern is right here. So this is the pattern I use. It's this wood, and by wrapping it around certain objects, cylinder, top, it looks different. So I'm not going to go too much detail with that because it's the same concept for all the 3D objects. I explained one in detail, so it's the same concept for the table. And one thing I didn't say was on the table, see, there's 3 parts to the table. See the cylinder, well, it's not on here now. hold on real quick. There was 3 images that were stacked on one another, so it formed the table. I want to make sure that all the images are gone. Now it's still there. I must have got rid of something else. Yeah, I think I got rid of the table now. So I had 3 objects stacked up on one another, and that formed the table. See, it's not there anymore. Okay, so like I said, I had the top, and let me just show you that real quick. The top, see the top? That's in the air because I'm going to add the cylinder to it, the body, and stack it up on top of, right on the table. Stack it right there on top. And then I'm going to add the bottom, which is the cone. And that's all I'm doing, is just stacking it up to form a shape. There you go. And that's your image. Now, just going to show you real quick. So, yeah, the animation of the rain, I just went in online and found something that I just used a different image. See, the rain's different. I found this online. I just stretched out the image. I'm not going to go in detail with the rain because I've already talked about that, but I just found a better image to use for rain that animates better. Minus 900, so it follows the character. It's on the screen. Using this right here makes it follow the image or follow the character when he's moving on screen. And then like all this greenery right here is a tree. This is all the greenery on the tree that's up top. So the leaves on the tree. All this right here is talking about if he moves a certain way that the flat image is going to rotate with the character, and that's just like the health that and the weapons that he picks up. If he rotates around the weapon, the flat sprint image is going to rotate with the character, so it looks 3D. And like I said, these numbers here, I think 22 or even 60, that raises the image up in the air. And I just made a whole bunch of images of the leaf and just raised it up to the top. That's what I did. So these numbers right here, I'm not going to go in detail with it too much, but you change these numbers here, it raises it up in the sky, and then you're able to position it just right near where the tree is at, and it looks like a tree. And that's why they're all gathered in this area right here, because underneath all this greenery is the cylinders for the bark of the tree. And I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's a tree inside. No, it's not that. It's one of these cylinders here. If I can get to it without deleting it. So, a tree inside. Now this is object tree. The object tree, this right here is the bark of the tree. So, yeah, so 15 makes it narrow a little bit, but it makes it circular. No, these change the numbers to narrow. this makes it either octagon or circle. And then changing these numbers will change the image of the image on the bark. It will change the bark image by going a different direction or give it a different pattern. Background 32. So background 32 is this right here. See the tree, and that wraps around the cylinder. And now the water right here, I had an animation on it. Alarm 0, 10 milliseconds. Then it's going to switch to a different animation. So I have two waters in here. This water here, you see the little spots because that's the rain. The water 2, see that so the wave, it looks a little different. The spots are in a different direction. So it's going to animate after 10 milliseconds. It's going to animate and change the image, and then it's going to switch. So this right here, this ellipse circle, so by changing these numbers here, it made it flat on the ground. This makes it circular. This, if you change these numbers to like 1 or something, it'll make the image smaller and look different. 10 makes it wider. The image makes